70 pas tout.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question, Eric, because I maybe I'm missing something in like because I couldn't quite make out this symbolism because in Amy's apartment she was talking about like how there was this one time of the day where the sun would reflect off of this tower into her apartment, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, like that was the time where Amy and Youngsu they end up sleeping together.
Yeah.
When he would go back to her apartment, and Youngsu was looking for that reflection again, but it was kind of this weird sexual arousal that he would get. Like was it kind of like a? Do you think that maybe it was something like where he was trying to recreate that moment, even though she was gone? Because even like when it towards the end of the movie where he's writing in her apartment, he has he's sleeping in her bed. He has this I don't know like dream or like fantasy like where she's still there like holding him.
Yeah. I thought about that scene too, and I don't know if I've quite figured it out. What it made me think of though is, how she says she fell into a well when she was younger.
That's kind of where I was thinking too, but I wasn't sure if that was what it was supposed to like connect, what we were supposed to connect with.
Right. It made me think about that, and then like imagine if you fell into a well, it'd be complete darkness, and except for one moment in the day when the sun would be overhead at the top of the well.
That makes sense, and so she always craved that moment of just that one moment of like sunlight.
Yeah, and then maybe she was that for him, that light, that glimmer of
and
hopeless.
And so she was always trying to re-seek that moment of like, there's this one moment where I have like some sort of like happiness because she's a very melancholy individual,
right?
And she's looking for that light. She always talked about that. The different the different hungers. The little hunger, which is like poverty and like starving,
and then the great hunger, and like the greater hunger is like the spiritual
figure out light,
right?
And that's more of a spiritual hunger.
Yeah. That scene, I initially had a different interpretation of that scene. I initially saw it as, her describing it as like, there's only one time of day that it happens, and like it happens and like really quickly, and it's a fleeting ethereal moment. And my first interpretation was, it was more talking about her character. It's like it's fleeting. It's it's here 1 minute, gone the next. But I mean, hearing this, it's a little bit. I'm maybe rethinking my position.
Yeah. Now that you guys are mentioning it, I didn't really put too much thought to it, but maybe that's kind of the sense of. That's kind of the feeling that Jung-soo and that generation, or that class, if you want to call it, that he represents, feels like they're trapped in a well. There's hopeless. There's no way to get out of this well. What work I do, there's
no way to dig yourself out or or get out.
But then there's moments where there is a little bit of hope. Like once a day, there's a reflection on the tower that gives you a little bit of light. But that's it. And
now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was like it's the situation with the well was something of like a conflagration of different things. Like maybe the well is like the feeling that she had growing up of being alone, or like because she was saying how like she was ugly, and so like even like when they were kids, Jung-soo was like, oh, look at her, she's ugly, and like walked across the street to avoid her.
Right.
And so maybe it's like the metaphorical like feeling of isolation, but then also, and then like it was but then also the apartment that she lived in was like north facing, and she said like, oh, my apartment doesn't get much sun in here.
Yeah.
And so like in that way, it was kind of like a well, and like having the sunlight entering the apartment, and like that one fleeting time during the day is kind of similar to like someone being at the bottom of a well and seeing a light that
Yeah.
might come in like only one time, one
Right.
fleeting time during the day. So
Right.
maybe it was like her like story of her falling into a well is like a conflagration of how she felt as a child, and also like kind of like her present circumstances in like the kind of crummy apartment that she lives in.
Right. And maybe that makes sense. Maybe she was speaking in metaphors as well. Maybe it wasn't a real well,
Mm-hmm.
but she's a well in life. And
Mm-hmm.
didn't she say that Jungsu is the one who got her out of the well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
So
though
maybe
like even though she said oh, look at the look on his face, he doesn't even remember.
Yeah. So in a way, maybe she's just speaking in metaphors. She's not
Right.
saying there was literally a well there, but in life at that time when she was young, she fell into a well. Maybe she means that she's been in the well her entire life until she saw Jungsu again, and that's why Jungsu saved her in a sense.
Yeah, that's a very strong possibility.
Yeah.
But it's the funny. It's kind of like a little bit of like a misdirection, because she, quote, what the hell is a metaphor? And it's like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
but her whole life is kind of like a metaphor, and like Youngsu is really like kind of like the one that gave her the sunlight in her life,
Right.
and they were kind of like it's Youngsu and Haimi, they needed each other, and it's like because they brought light into each other's life,
Right.
and Ben was kind of the one that kind of took that all away.
That's true. That's true. And she kind of messed.
Ben technically was the well, in a lot of ways too.
Oh yeah.
I can see that perspective. Yeah.
Ben's the well. This is like
Finkel is Einhorn.